Hello, Dandelion community. Welcome to Get in the Know With Sto on the Dandelion Dialogue. Ladies and gentlemen, I have with us today somebody that I consider, he doesn't even know it, because he's a mentor to so many people. Just as he carries himself in this city, as he totally, everywhere he goes, seeks to transform the landscape to make it a more healthy, a more safer space and community.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I have Dr. Charlie Caswell, Commissioner, here with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
And welcome.
Thank you for having me. Yes, ma'am.
Welcome.
Yeah.
We have been in contact with each other for years, on and off.
Yeah.
And sit in spaces often together as we're both trying to seek how to make the city a better place and how we can be utilized in purpose.
Yes, yes.
And serving in our passion to do that. And it's a privilege to be able to see and hear all that you do. There's probably not a week that your name is a call in some space, whether it's education, civics, in terms of what you're doing in this city.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm honored. So.
Yes. Well, I'm going to tell for some who I don't know, may not know who you are, but I'm going to tell a little bit about you.
Okay.
Okay, just a little bit. You serve as the Shelby County Commissioner. And you represent District 6.
Yes, the best district in the county.
All right, all right, all right. You are a community activist, passionate about social justice, and you have a leadership that is bar none. You believe in premier customer service.
Yes, ma'am.
And you exemplify that in every space that I have been in with you. You are an author of How to Become More Visible, Vocal, and Valuable to Your Community.
Yeah.
And you believe in advocating for the empowerment of youth and collaborative community impact. And your vision encompasses the 7 P's. Community collaboration framework in schools nationwide.
Yeah.
So you've been a pastor for a long time. How many years?
So I've been ministering since 2004, 2002, I'm sorry, so it's 22 years.
Oh, wow, 22 years.
Yep.
And you understand that there is no singular solution to improving the lives of students in poverty in Shelby County.
Yeah,
that goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
Prayer and people.
Yeah.
Right? And so your journey has been centered around childhood trauma, but understanding childhood trauma, and has transformed many people's understanding and perspective about it.
Yes.
You've studied ACEs, which is Adverse Childhood Experiences, and have gained insights that have fueled your advocacy. You believe in the importance of awareness around childhood trauma to enhance the lives of vulnerable students, working with stakeholders to pass legislation to mandate that ACEs training is for everybody, specifically for parents, right?
Yeah.
And it goes on and on and on, ladies and gentlemen. You have done so much in this community.
Yeah.
And I wanted to invite you because you and I share that curiosity about trauma. I think we can both say that we've experienced some level of trauma.
Yeah.
And we're on a mission to educate and bring awareness to adverse childhood experiences, as well as let people know that it doesn't have to define you.
That's right.
And also giving credence to resilience and hope in the space where trauma dwells.
You can overcome.
You can overcome. You can overcome.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, first of all, would you tell the Dandelion community just a little bit about, you do so much, but specifically I want to talk about trauma for a little bit. What was it? What was the experience that brought you to wanting to take a deep dive in what trauma is
Yeah. I can say because of growing up as a child here in Memphis in one of the most impoverished communities, the Dixie Home Project, across from Labona Hospital at a time when crack cocaine came on the scene. Seen so much. Two of my friends died. One at 14, shot in the chest right in front of me. One at 15, shot in the head. And witnessing that and sitting there for hours till the police came and took the bodies away and knew that these individuals gone. They grew up with that anger. And so that translated to a lot, whether it was smoking marijuana early age, taking big risks of selling drugs, crack cocaine in the community, and knowing that there was a risk because people robbing and killing out there individuals, and saw that whether it was dropping out of high school in the 10th grade and figuring like life really didn't matter, right? But it was in my adult years because of people that played a role early in my life, like the former director Tony Armstrong, who's a mentor to me growing up in the Dixie Home Projects, who somebody told me as a rookie cop, you're going to be somebody. And later in life, to see me and him being honored one day at the county commission, before I became a commissioner, as a community leader, and him as our director of the police department, and seeing us and saying, hey, look what God brought us to. But then it was in 2016, I can say around that time when I met Dr. Alta Stewart, and she really started to say, Charlie, you do the work. You've been working in our community, helping out with children and family. And I didn't know where I had this passion for them other than the fact of what happened to me, right? Yeah. And there's the fact that I didn't want to see other children go through that trauma I just described as I grew up. But she said, you got to have this evidence-based research behind it. And she began to educate me on ACEs and the impact of that study and research. And man, the light bulb went off. I can tell you from that year, 2016, we was in Leadership Memphis, American Leadership Forum program together. When we talked, that 5 days we spent in the woods in Alabama, and she really pulled into me. I came home and cried for weeks. I was crying everywhere I was, and I understand that these was not just tears of sorrow, these was tears of joy, because for years I thought something was wrong with me, but I recognized it was what happened to me. Yes. And so, man, I can tell you my marriage took a 360, right? So that anger I act out on, and frustration when my wife will say something like, go wash the dishes today, baby. And it triggered to hear my mama say it and take a extension cord to me as a child to say it. So now I was hearing my mama's voice, so I bust a hole in the wall. This was before I became trauma informed. And so when I recognized that, it shifted my marriage, it shifted my life, my children, my 6 babies I got, and them not seeing their daddy getting angry and frustrated anymore. It does something, and you got to understand. So I was in ministry, still carrying that hurt, right? Until I recognized that revelation. So once I got the revelation, I say everybody needs this, right? Everybody needs to be free, because I know if I'm feeling this way, and all of my friends who I seen, sadly, I buried some of them and preached their funeral because they was carrying that same anger, triggered by some of the things that we saw as children growing up in that community. I said, I got to use this for the good now. Absolutely. What the devil meant for bad, God is now turning it around for the good. And so that really triggered me to take it to the next level, to really push for legislation. When I think about how my parents got divorced and separated, and how that even drew the anger and frustration of thinking it was on us as children. To push for House Bill 2588 in the state of Tennessee, that now if you get a divorce in the state of Tennessee, you got to go through ACEs training before the judge signs off on that bill. It's things like that that really said, what can I do, right, to make an impact, to change marriages, change lives, and touch our children and generations to come. That fueled me once I got that revelation. Yeah.
Wow, that's a testimony.
Yes, ma'am.
To totally change the track that you were headed on based on awareness and education from some research and data that you were exposed to. So I encourage people, if you don't know about ACEs and you're wanting to know a little bit more about trauma, Dr. Althea Stewart out of UT Memphis is one of the champions in this work. And you can go online and look it up, and she has provided many research opportunities for you all to
tap into.
yeah, absolutely.
And I just throw this a little plug for Dr. Stewart
Yeah.
out there that 3 years ago she was the first African American in 171 years to be elected as the president of the American Psychiatrists
Yes.
Association.
Yes.
So just remember that, and you
Absolutely.
can look her up and you'll know the impact of what this woman have done for my life and others. And I think about the thousands and thousands of even now, right, that I had to I was holding back who I really was, right? People was trying to get me to run for office years ago. See, they saw me smiling in public, but they didn't see the pain behind the scene. But then for now, this smile to be genuine and unique because I recognized it was not what was wrong, right? But what happened, I said, like, how can I go upstream and make sure that this don't happen to others,
Somebody
right?
else another time.
And so, yeah, so it really put me in this position now to be a commissioner over 76,000 in my district, but serve in the community with 960,000 people, to know that we can put policies and practices in place that change generations to come. I think, I know it's God. And
Absolutely.
again, I thank her for that impartation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She saw something in you and championed you as others have done.
Yeah.
As we're also called to do. And this is just the vehicle that you use to do that.
To do that, yeah.
To do that.
Yeah.
When you think of trauma here in our city, what comes to bring that to life for us?
Yeah.
What is trauma in this city that right now makes you really want to do something immediately, keeps you up at night? What does trauma look like right now in this city for you that's critical?
Yeah, I say this is that you can't do nothing about the now if you don't know about the past, right? And to think about in my generation, just in mine, and I know it was even more before me when you talk about the epigenetics of what my parents went through and what they did and they had to experience with trauma as a black person in the South. To see for me as a young man, and I was born in 75, a leader like Dr. King shot and killed in our city, and as a child being raised up to know that as a black man began to speak his voice and to raise up for his people, the chances of you not making it, right? And to keep you bound, and then have a father and parent who were afraid because of, again, what happened to them, that they was like, a black man shouldn't speak to that, to truth to power, right? And so I think that now we have a generation with the social media generation that feel like you can say anything anytime, and you have that freedom that many times you was kind of boxed in to do. And I think like then what I see now in the trauma of our generation now is a untrained generation of knowledge. The knowledge that I gained from this helped me to get out of that freeze, fight, and flight mode, right? And it helped me to get into a heal mode, to build mode. And so I think that these young generation here want to build, but don't have the tools because they haven't healed. And we're talking about generations of people who have ran from a trauma-informed perspective and understanding that you running from something that's not your fault in a lot of cases. Yes, we have to be accountable for where we are now, but accountable to what? And accountable to who? Because I say this, and many times they say that it takes a village to raise a child. But what's wrong? Who raised the village that has not healed? So everybody, the pastor, the police, the politician, the parent, principal, they may be in leadership, but they're hurting. As I sit on the body and I hear my colleagues from the north of the state that speak out of hurt, you can tell there's no healing. And so if we're leading hurt, it rolls down to the city.
So unhealed wounds, right, leads to continuous re-traumatization. Of hurting people. Often unintentional. Right?
Yeah, but that's what you know.
But it's what happens.
Yeah.
So looking at that narrative, not negating the fact that you got to understand the historical understanding of what happened, why it happened, to get to what happened.
Yeah.
And you cannot move forward unless you have an understanding of why you got to the place you're in.
Right. Why you do what you're doing.
Why
you act the way you acting, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What's triggering that thing for you? And I say this to that point that 2018 now, so I'm in juvenile court and I'm doing a training on ACEs with youth, and I know at the state they were like, why are you training kids in juvenile court? Because I know, I'm from the hood, like many of these kids, they raising their brothers and sisters. They in here because parents weren't there for them.
Right.
And so I asked these 50 young men in juvenile court, and I said to them, I said, how many of you all lived in a home or from a home that have a father figure? Like 2 out of the 50, my uncle and stepdaddy. I said, how many of you all been told you act just like your daddy? All of them raised their hand. Never knew the man, never seen them, but act like him. I remember one of them running up to me with the ACEs survey at the end because I gave it to them as I done the training. He said, I'm good. This is the only one I got. And it said, parent incarcerated. And I said, what's your parent incarcerated? Well, my daddy carjacked somebody. I said, what you here for? Oh, I carjacked him. He thought he was good, but he's duplicating what the only thing he knew, a robbery that somebody displayed before them. So again, that's the tool he had. And many times, sadly, we are penalizing individuals for the only tool they have, and we as a community are failing to make sure different and the right tools are in place that give them the capacity. And some of us have left them to their ownses, and with the Joneses, and then one what's going on is in our community.
Hey, I'm gonna snap on that.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That whole idea of a child in the role of a parent, that parentalization space, we don't realize that in itself is traumatizing a child, taking them out of their role of a child and putting them in the role of an adult.
Yeah.
And how that has been a generational practice.
Yeah. And you think about that. So if you put me in an adult space without not ever training me, and then I fail, and you say you failed, then now I'm raising up thinking I'm a failure, but I never knew what success looked like.
Absolutely.
And so now you got people who are now trying to be in a married life, like I was in my first marriage. That was chaos because I brought that hurt and pain in. Like I said, I had to go back and repent to my first wife. And then thankfully we got a great relationship and got raising great twins together. Yet I carried that pain in trying to be a grown. I was how do you say this? I was grown. I had growth, but I wasn't grown.
There you go.
That's what
you had growth, but wasn't grown.
Wasn't grown. And so many people figure because they big in stature, but you ain't grown. You haven't not grew up to understand your real purpose and potential, so therefore you can't give nothing. Yeah.
You know, of course, that leads me into social emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Because they work hand in hand with trauma. When we think about self-awareness, social awareness, empathy, right? Being able to control yourself, your emotions, and care, and able to get to a social emotional space, you have to have some understanding of the trauma that you're either carrying or the trauma that you've experienced.
Yeah.
So why is it difficult for certain people, certain groups of people to acknowledge trauma?
Yeah.
You mentioned marriage. When I talk to men, sometimes they don't want. They like empathy. That's
weak.
That's weak right there.
Yeah.
Empathy.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Right. I'm good. My trauma good. It made me the man that I am.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you think about the mental health condition that a lot of black men specifically are struggling in right now, and there's no acknowledgement that trauma existed from my childhood. There's no acknowledgement or discussion that I'm even aware of it, because to me that was just,
that's the way it is. It's normal.
Yeah. So how do you get people, individuals, to acknowledge it, or talk about it, or even say, you know what, there was trauma? Oh
wow! I tell you, since I've been in this space. I mean, I have psychiatrists that come to me for counseling. I mean, I was just talking with one today that said, "Man, I ran because of the molestation, the stuff that I had in my past." that you helped me understand that I wanted to be somebody to change somebody else's life, but never dealt with what happened in my life, right? And so to recognize that it was what happened to me. Now, when I see my life falling apart, because now I'm being triggered by that. So many times, this is what I hope our men and those parents understand, is that the enemy will set you up to make you look like you're winning. And get you high enough in elevated places to trigger you, to tie you down. Because I'm gonna tell you something. I said something this often, that if you don't heal and get slow your aces down, don't run for no political, don't read no pastor, don't put yourself in leadership role, because something gonna trigger you. You better know the message of Acts 19:14, the 7 sons of Sheba. Paul I know, Jesus I know, but who are you? Because that trial, and because we know that story, how it turned out, he whooped the clothes off all of them. So it'll put you in as high priests and high places, but then if you don't deal with what happened to you, it's going to come for you. And you think you made it, you think you made it, until that elevation and real life purpose is. And so I say this, is that a lot of times people don't know what they carrying, right? Because nobody really called it out, right? And no one is really sat down and let's have a real conversation. Let's talk about what happened. Because for years, I was talking to a leader the other day who said that he thought he was the underdog, the black sheep of the family, right? Because that's what they called him. And so really some of his action, even in a high leadership capacity, could not operate as the man he really supposed to be. He was in a box but successful. I said, man, so it blew me. And people that don't know you will judge you by what they see, not knowing what's really underneath that man. And so the best thing that ever happened to me was to be transparency about what happened to the man, so people can understand that if he can overcome it, God can use him. And I said he went way down and got a Charlie Caswell to bring you up here, because he knew that you were going to tell a story and not be ashamed of the glory that I'm going to place on your life, because you chose to become purposeful in the will that I called you to be. And so that's what I think, is that people are afraid. And it was my pastor, Ricky Floyd, said this many years ago to me. He said, Charlie, many years ago, he said, when nobody else couldn't see nothing in me, he said, you're afraid of failure, but you're afraid of success. You just right there. Oh man, that got me right there.
You stuck in the middle.
You're stuck in the middle. And so many people, when we look at our city, are not reaching their full potential. There's no way that we should be where we are, being the number one black city per capita, but having been number one in poverty, number one in violence. If everybody went stuck where they at, right? It's like it's so much more in us, where sin abound, grace abound the more. And so what God is doing, he's looking for that grace in this season, right, of the understanding. That's why I push this message, because trauma-informed and then trauma responsiveness is saying that I understand there's some grace on what happened to me, because I should have been dead, sleeping in my grave. I should have been under the jail. I should have been way up past hell. But God, grace was sufficient, right? And I often drive and going to the office and going home, and I think about it. I said, man, God kept me for this. Like, and I think that people got to, and that's where it's important to have a relationship with him, because you got to understand, you are here for a higher purpose. But I think a lot of our people think we here to please, and in this generation, especially please somebody on social media, please somebody that's going to not like or don't like, and then I get triggered and frustrated because you didn't like what I thought you should.
No social skills.
No social skills.
Yeah. No social skills.
Yeah.
So how do we get to collective healing?
Yeah.
How do we get there as a community?
Yeah, I think we get there as a village together, right? We get there together. Let me say that. I think that even when we look at the capacity of what's changing in society with the new presidential election and the full power given to one side, how did they achieve that collectively? Well, sometimes you can win when you in unity, even though you're not win when you're not right if you unify. Especially if you're working against the people who disjointed, right? So I think that if we all come to the understanding that we all been traumatized, and watch this here, I've been all right, ain't nothing happened to me, but what happened to your parents? Absolutely. What happened to your parents? Because somewhere down the line, it's going to come back to hunt you, and let's address that. and then look at collectively, how do we, the parents, pastors, police, politicians, proprietors, principals, partners, because that's we the majority here, say come together and let's deal with this at the root cause. And I really hate to see, even at our school level, when we don't, I said it's coming out of the pandemic, we already had an epidemic of trauma before the pandemic. So now you took all these little people and put them in that. They had no me to talk, no coach, nobody to talk to. So therefore, all of what so I guarantee you, and I have it said to me a lot of times, parents recognize to love the teachers more after spending 2 years with them children at home, because it brought some demons out. And so we recognize that. But why we went back to doing business as usual, right? We should have had it where they're spending the first year almost that these kids are getting nothing but mental health counseling services and so on, and the parents too.
And the parents.
And the teachers too.
And the teachers too.
And
everybody that touches a child.
Yeah.
Should have been getting some type of support and resources.
And sadly, I think because we collectively didn't have that mindset, and I really believe, because right after the pandemic, there was an election and I got elected, and one of the first things that I put into a resolution was that we become a trauma-informed, trauma-responsive city and county.
Yes.
And partnering, thankfully, to Councilwoman Michael Easton and Logan, who joint resolution on the city side to say, let's train all of our employees to be trauma-informed, and we're pushing more mental health and pushing more counseling for these workers and individuals to be connected, because we serve 12,000 plus of us servants of public city and county, 960,000 people in some way. And if we're not trauma-informed and trauma-responsive, we're going to act out on these individuals, right, who looking for us to serve them. And so,
re-traumatizing those that we're serving. So what challenges do you face as a trauma-informed leader? Like, how do you maintain your social-emotional intelligence?
Yeah.
You know, what are those obstacles that are facing you?
Yeah. How can I say that? So I feel like they getting less, or they there. I just don't pay much attention to them as they would have back then. When you heal, you don't look at hurt the same way, right?
Say that again.
People intentionally try to come for you, but you look at them like, what happened to you, right? So I'm having empathy because I know you have not been trauma informed about your trauma, right? So therefore, so the challenge I have is people that's afraid to ask themselves the question, what happened, right? And be willing to look deep and down inside of self, because especially for me, if you're going to lead anybody, if you're a parent, if you're a pastor, if you're a police, if you're a politician, right, you're a proprietor, you're going to lead anybody, you need to be in a place that you can heal somebody. I think that the challenge I face with, I guess in part, is like, how do we become a heal people to heal people, right? And I think that many times people are not focused there because they're focusing on what's good for me and my foe and no more. Right? And recognizing that there is a higher calling and assignment on us as a people. And so really, I think about it, and not to be ego on it, is that I found myself not arguing because I don't look at people who understand your purpose, right? Because I'm here for his will to be done. You trying to fight me about this will. And so like you can't stay there, right? And I think that all of us have to come up to a level that we understand that we got a higher power and purpose, and that tomorrow it can all end. Who you gonna answer to?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So when we think about resiliency, like bouncing back, and I paused for a minute. I put a little pin in my processing when you said that people who are hurting, who are not healed, you have empathy for them, right? So they don't impact you, right? You're protecting your peace, so to speak. But how do you practice keeping your peace? Like, what does that look like for you?
So I told you earlier that I get up at 4 o'clock every morning, prayer time. So it's one of my prayers every morning. Once I thank the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit for waking me up and carrying me, is going before me and making my crooked road straight. So now that I know that God and the Holy Spirit has gone before me, for me to encounter with any type of that I have to fight this battle, is to say that God didn't do his job, right? So I really like to, throughout the day, say, God, I thank you that you're going to work it out. I get frustrated, I get angry sometimes, but then I fall back on my morning prayer and meditation, right? That time that I spent in that word and saying, because man, I'm telling you, like my daily reading of the word and understanding really helped me. It pops up in that day. And I think that people just really don't understand that time of meditation is important, right? That time of reflecting on today is about a purpose. So every day I get up on purpose. And I think that the day that I get up and no purpose, then some days you get up and you want to be on the side of the bed, but you know every morning, I tell the Lord, thank you for the last 18 years that I post on social media, ain't just because I tell him, I'm coming out, thank you.
Absolutely.
And that has been my, again, I remember some years ago, a woman said, we was in a community meeting, she said, he always saying, tell the Lord thank you. He got some stuff going on. But who ain't saying everybody got some stuff going on? But that was a hurt person. And I knew it. And some things came up later that I understood. So I say that to say that, but that don't stop the gratitude that you have, that man, I, again, tell you about my past, I shouldn't be here. So to be in this capacity, to be able to help other people, I'm grateful.
Yes.
You know, so I think that helps me daily, and I believe anybody, once you really reflect. Because for years, and until really Dr. Stewart helped me, man, my friends used to always tell me, they like, Charlie, you remember when this happened, when after what's your name got killed, and this happened? I didn't remember the good stuff. All I remember was that. But when I got to understand that it wasn't what was wrong, I'm talking about, it seemed like my memory just started coming back. Things that I was trying to, that free fight and flight, I was froze out of my memory because I didn't want to remember that time, right? But now I want to remember because that is what helps me heal in this time, right? So,
absolutely. So what gives you hope? If for somebody that might be listening right now that's dealing with a trauma situation, right? That is dealing with a challenge that is impacting them, their mental health, their social emotional well-being. What would you tell them right now in terms of how to get to a space of peace and hope? What words do you have for any listener that's listening to your voice right now that says to themselves, I have been in trauma, or I am still in a traumatized space or situation or relationship, and I don't know how to get to that healing space?
Yeah. I would say one word is reflection is one, and focus is the other. Reflect on where you come from and focus on where you're going. Because as this young man sit here with you, having built the capacity over the years to where I am, to think about that, what I talked about that day, even when my partner got shot, they went around and shot a couple of other friends. Some of his people came retaliate. I could have been in that group. To think about one night, me walking home, and because who my brother was, this heavy guy in the community now, he's a community leader doing great work in ministry. And I was the guy to collect the money, and this guy put the gun to my head that night and told me to give the money or he was going to kill me. He had my friend hand. He said, if he run, I'm shooting you. My friend, 14, he's scared. He broke out to run. The guy pulled the trigger. The gun didn't go off. When he started running away from us, my brother and them came around, started shooting at him. He turned around, pow, the gun goes off. So that bullet was meant that day to kill me. So to hope to be here, the grace, to think about that child who I was as that 10th grader who dropped out of high school, that didn't go and get my GED until I was 30 years old, but now carrying a doctorate in my name, and to be able to help folks all around the country to do that gives me hope. So reflecting on what could have been and the focus of what's going to be, because I got healed from that could have took me out. So it gives me hope to know that my focus on God and God's purpose and on my life have shifted this thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that a lot of times people, again, don't reflect on what happened, where you were, where you could have been,
Yeah.
what could have happened, but then understanding that the hope of and focusing on what is going to happen, because now you're lined up in the wheel and you're walking in your purpose and you're doing what you're called to do, but to do it on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Be intentional,
Be
do it on
intentional.
purpose, reflect,
Mm-hmm.
focus
Mm-hmm.
with passion.
Sebastian. Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah, yeah.
You've given us so
You can write a book on
much.
that.
Woo! That's powerful.
Yeah,
That.
yeah.
What is going on with all the things that you have going on?
Mhm.
How can the community find out more about how they can plug in with what you're doing with
Yeah.
Legacy of Legends,
Yeah, yeah,
and you got some events coming up,
Yeah,
and people want to know how they can make a difference and learn more
Yeah.
about how they can collectively connect with
Mm.
people doing work like you.
Yeah.
So how could they get in touch with
Yeah.
you? What is going on in
Do
the
the work.
world of
Mhm.
Dr. Caswell that people
Yeah.
might not know about, but they can plug in?
Lot going
Yes.
on. Lot going on, but I'm blessed. So one of the things I tell people all the time, they say, man, how you do all this, right?
Mhm.
So my intentionality of focusing on my relationships, my book that talk about how to be more visible, vocal, and valuable, it talk about the 3 C's: communication, collaboration, and connecting, with the 7 P's.
Yes.
What takes most people a lifetime, I can make one phone call because I was intentional about my police relationship, intentional about my pastor's relationship,
Mhm.
parent relationships, proprietor relationships. So when I became a county commissioner 2 years ago, I knew that the work had to continue, and I knew that God was calling me upstream. So I transitioned from that position. I'm the founder of Legacy of Legend now, but my daughter, who was in that position as a success coach, is now the executive director. She runs the show. She's the boss.
Yeah.
And she is continuing the legacy as a 28-year-old who's now, again, overseeing an organization that's making an impact, where we are partnering and contracted with Memphis Business Academy in Fraser and Westside in Fraser, where we're providing wraparound and success coaches that working in there. Was able to, because of one phone call to a community partner, Alliance Healthcare, to be able to bring therapists to work inside that school alongside of us, that if we see that it's not a just trauma incident, but it's some mental happening there, to be able to make that refer and hand off to our clinical partners who can go deeper with that child and family. That's the level of work there that we do. What I founded a lot of this on mitigating adverse childhood experience through Legacy about. But going even deeper upstream is in my district of Raleigh, in which I represent the unincorporated area of Shelby County to the north, all of Raleigh in the Nutbush community. We started an initiative called Wraparound District 6.
Okay.
And so Wraparound District 6 is a resilient hub, public safety, public health strategic plan. And we create an ecosystem within that community. Our 3 main focus of public health, public safety, and public education is really have a components of it that we do community engagement. Like this year, we're going to host our first ever Raleigh Christmas Parade.
Yeah.
And that's big. And again, we're bringing that community and that district together like never before. And that community engagement gives hope. We having a tree lighting there on December the 13th on that Friday at 5 o'clock, and then December the 14th, the parade at 10 o'clock. I just found out that the Thank You Memphis Police Department cleared us to march down Austin P Highway. We're going to shut it down and come big. But that is just a snippet of the big picture. The big picture is that I was able to invest, and thank my colleagues on County Commission for supporting $600,000 for these resilient hubs, and at the dwelling place at 3034 Old Austin P Highway, where we meet every Tuesday at noonday for our stakeholder meetings, but also have light at night basketball every Friday night from 8 o'clock to midnight with over 100 some young men from all over the city, where we're connecting them to jobs, to resources, and support's powerful. And then at one of our other hubs at the Embassy of Faith over on Raleigh Militant, where we got after school programs. Just got some good news. I can't see it yet.
Yeah.
That's coming out of that partnership with some of our job training programs. Yesterday had brought in another partner with the YMCA that's going to be allowing where families come to these hubs, get connected to jobs, help them with their resume, strategically connect them to job training.
Yes.
So these hubs, again, are places that we're building resilience in, right? And even prayerfully, we don't experience it, but just say that a major event was to happen, a storm, what have you. These hubs will be where you go. This is where we're feeding out of. This is where we're providing services, keeping hope alive, even in the midst of the storm. And so that holistic strategic plan is calling on anybody and everybody. If you're a community organization, if you're a government or agency, to plug in, whether it's also our partnership with the Memphis Police Department, where we are going deeper in our getting citizens to become part of the Citizen Academy, and the pastors to become part of the Clergy Academy, where we're pushing for citizens to be more neighborhood watches on their blocks. And we're supporting those captains, right? Helping them with resources. Whether it is that you are, again, doing job training, financial literacy programs, so with our affordable housing partners with Raleigh CDC and UVerse CDC, it's plugging in that system and those partnerships that's really giving us a capacity to build that strategic plan and have that ecosystem to say, if you one of the 76,000 in this district, you connected to these resources. So that is what we're doing.
Wow, y'all doing a lot of amazing work.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Transforming lives.
It is. Giving people hope.
Giving them hope.
Yeah.
Letting them know you can bounce back.
Yeah.
There are people who care. Your community cares.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And I saw that, and a lot of that work was even when I was in Fraser in deep work with that. And again, I said to my constituents when I was running for office, they said, "Well, we know you did a great work in Fraser, but the line got redistricted, right?" And so I was drew into this new district.
Yeah.
They said, "But what you gonna do for us over here?" I said, "Well, the Bible said first start in Jerusalem, then Samaria, then the uttermost parts of the world." I said, "This is my Samaritan."
Absolutely.
So let's do the work.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How can people plug in? Can they get the newsletter?
Yep.
Where can the email address?
So I just say this too. If you go to Just Memphis Info, we have an info hub there that you can go to. Wrap around District 6 Info Hub, and then again send us an email. You can get us on social media at All Things District 6, Shelby County Commission. You can get me at myself, Charlie Caswell, on Facebook, 3V Leader on Instagram, Legacy of Legends CDC on Facebook and Instagram. But if you just want to reach out into my office, if you have a need and have a connection, 901-222-1000. Again, I'm the County Commissioner for District 6, but if you live anywhere else in the city, my assistant will gladly connect you to who your commissioner and those resources are. We want to be that hub that people can connect with, because again, we have a level of responsibility here. I say this is, I'm one of the few, and there's 13 of us, that is employed by the government, but we don't work for the government. We work for the people.
Absolutely.
So my boss is the people. And so again, if I'm not doing my job, to fire me. Because this is not where I'm supposed to be. But if I'm doing what I'm supposed to do to help make your quality of life better, then you keep us there, and we keep on doing the work.
It's awesome. I've read so many articles about you, but one that stood out the most was the one where the community was calling you a hero. And you're absolutely that. And not in a prideful way, but that you truly are about the business of the people, as a hero is, to come to bring hope to the masses. So I thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, you're a hero.
Oh.
Because a hero is that person that's on purpose, right? That's intentional, that is committed in doing the hard work that calls for. And we know that's what you're doing when you think about the parents and the people that lives are being changed because of what you do. To use this platform, right, to reach more people, to understand who they are and their purpose and plan. And so if one person can help, you're a hero.
Be better. And it's it is when you're in this place. I said we are tight, but I think it's bigger than that, as you were mentioning earlier. It's those that truly understand purpose and they use their passion, and nothing can stop you when you're on that track. I looked down. I said I came from work, still got my name tag on, to try to bring awareness so people could hear your voice and hear what you're doing.
I still got my name tag. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate
Yes, ma'am.
you. We thank you.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing how we can join
Yes, ma'am.
and connect with
Need you.
all that you're doing.
Yes, ma'am.
So that we can do this collective healing work.
It's worth it.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Dandelion community, give it up, give it up, give it up for Dr. Charlie Coswell Jr. And ladies and gentlemen, you all know that you can go to DestinationDandelion.com. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear your feedback. I want to know how this has impacted you, because it has truly impacted me. So until we meet again, Dandelion community, I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. You all go and be blessed. Thank you for getting in the Know With Sto. Take care.